Okay. All right, we're going to get started. We got a lot of bills to get through this morning. Welcome to local government. And let's see who's here. All righty. Hot dang. Okay. I understand we have a House Committee Chair amongst us, Delegate Hayes, who has to be somewhere. So we're going to take him out of order. Remember that when I come over there, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. You have before you House Bill 998. And the summary of this bill, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is simply that the proposal will clarify that localities may adopt an ordinance to address floodplain management either separately from the zoning ordinance or without having first adopted a zoning ordinance. The problem that we have today that we need to clarify is that some localities have adopted floodplain ordinances outside of their zoning ordinance and not a part. Right. And so what we're trying to do here is to make it clear that whether you've done that initially by creating your floodplain ordinance inside your zoning ordinance or outside of that, that you're still eligible to take advantage of that, the floodplain insurance program.
All right. That's a simple concept. Anybody here to speak in favor of House Bill 998? In favor? Russ?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I just wanted to thank Delegate Hayes for carrying this bill on behalf of the department and the administration. I think he explained it well. It's just a simple tweak in the code that allow ordinances that are not contained within a zoning ordinance to be valid. About 290 of 320 communities in Virginia have floodplain ordinances, so it's really nothing new.
Have floodplain ordinances separate and apart from their zoning?
No, just have floodplain ordinances,
okay.
But some are outside of their zoning ordinance. But
all right.
I'm happy to answer any
Mr. Chairman.
questions.
Well, let's just see, just on the off chance that somebody could possibly somehow be against House Bill 998. Okay. All right. Now, Senator Spruill.
Move approval.
All right. All right. Motion and seconded that we report Senate Bill 998. Open the roll. There you go. You're on the uncontested docket, Delegate Hayes. Good place
Thank you,
to be.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we're going to do a little housekeeping. We have several charter bills here that are identical to charter bills that were on the House, that were on the Senate side that we've taken up and that have passed through unanimously. The following bills, I'm going to make a motion that we put these bills in a block and vote on them in a block. That would be House Bill 168. And listen, if you're a patron for one of these things, listen, and then you can get up and make room for somebody else, okay? House Bill 168, 171, 345, 441, 464, 629, 655. Which one? All right, I'm told 655 is coming out of the block. So 629, 749, 846, 1064, 1233, and 1565. So the motion is that we put them in a block to be voted on. Do I have a second to that wonderful motion? Okay. Do we need a recorded vote on putting these things in a block? All right. All right, so the motion and second, we put them in a block. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the bills are before us in a block.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the bills in a block are to be reported. All in favor? Okay, efficiency in action. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Spruill.
we want statewide Jones to come on back here.
He was able to just think his bill through. So he just wished it on through. All right, now we'll go back to the sign-up sheet. I don't think, let me see if there's anything else we can do. Okay, no, it looks like everything else has got to be taken up. All right, Delegate Hodges, you're up on the sign-up sheet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. You actually have two bills before you. this morning. Let's go ahead and, if it's okay, get 1267 out of the
Alrighty.
way,
1267.
dealing with land bank entities. Now, ownership of property, it not only strikes at the heart of our understanding of individual freedoms, it's also the bedrock for healthy communities. But our communities age, Mr. Chairman. Much of the Middle Peninsula, we suffer from what we call hypervacancy, and many of these areas, hypervacancy rates over 20%. Areas of Middlesex County over 30%, Matthews over 30%, 23% in Essex. So addressing this issue, it's really vital to restore the region's economic lifeblood and really re-inspire our neighborhoods. So to help revitalize these communities, this permits localities to designate a planning district commission as a land bank entity. Currently, localities may create an authority or designate certain existing nonprofit organizations as a land bank entity, but this would really help us in our region help with this hyper-vacancy rate. Fairly simple bill, I hope, Mr. Chairman.
Seems fairly simple, but you never know, do you?
That's right. No such thing as a simple bill.
Anybody in favor, anybody want to speak in favor of House Bill 1267? Anybody want to speak against House Bill 1267?
Move the bill be reported.
Second.
Motion and seconded that House Bill 1267 be reported. All in favor? All righty. What have you got next?
House Bill 1675, dealing with solar facilities. Now, you'll probably see a number of bills moving through the General Assembly this year dealing with solar, but this one's a little bit different. Let me give you a little bit of background and kind of the mindset of where we're coming from. Now, we hear about environmental justice all of the time, but one thing, in environmental justice that it talks about is the fair distribution of the environmental benefits and burdens. And in this case, when we look at solar, I'm not saying whether solar is right or wrong, but in our rural regions, there are a number of things we look at that can be a burden. We had, just last year, we had a solar facility that actually blew out through the ENS and stormwater phase. It dumped tons of mud onto our roadways, tons of mud into the Rappahannock River, and tons of sediment. And we were ultimately the ones that had to deal with that each and every day. Also, when you look at a number of these, especially in the rural coastal region, they're being built right up next to the floodplains right now. And as we're talking about the water's coming up, in 20 or 30 years, you're looking at many of these being underwater with toxic chemicals, lead, cadmium telluride, and miles and miles and miles of copper that we would ultimately have to deal with in our region. In addition, in looking at one facility, there's a 1,700-acre facility that's actually proposed in King and Queen County. Now, in the end, that 1,700-acre facility, through the M&T and so forth, the locality probably would only get about $20,000 a year in revenue through this. And when you look at it the other way, Fairfax signed a deal that they say will save them $60 million over the course of that contract in utilities cost. Also, you also have the end users in those urban areas that are the purchasers of this electricity that are, it's actually creating enormous wealth in those regions. Six-figure salaries and actually thousands and thousands of jobs. And when you take that 1,700-acre facility, and I looked at it, that's equivalent to 1,288 football fields. And that 1,288 football fields would a Northern Virginia locality be willing to give up that amount of space for approximately $20,000 a year. In addition, there were approximately 10 agriculture-related jobs that would be lost forever in the region. And, a solar facility, you may get one job with a person, that flies a drone around. And when you do the math, in King and Queen County, those 10 agriculture-related jobs are equivalent to 1,600 jobs in Fairfax County. There are less than 800 total jobs in King and Queen County, including school jobs and county jobs. And when you really look at this, these are huge, massive projects, and they change who you are and how you live People that have hunted that land for generations can no longer hunt that. People that have raised dogs. It changes who you are and actually how you live. And we're the ones that actually be looking at it each and every day. And I'm not saying whether solar is right or wrong, but at some point, if we want to get to yes, we need to share be fair with the economic benefits and burdens with our green energy policy as well. Because when you look at environmental justice, you typically focus on the pollution. But we need to flip that and look at that in a totally different way. This is really a fairly simple bill, and it allows the negotiation for these solar projects in our economically distressed regions that are eligible for opportunity zones to sit down and have a fair and honest debate on what's good for that locality in the end. Each and every locality is different, and they should be able to sit down and have an open and honest debate on what's best for that locality. And you actually negotiate that just like you would a landfill. A landfill is about 300 acres. This is 1,700 acres, and this would change the area and the region much more than a landfill would actually do. So it's a fairly simple bill, and it'll allow for that. You'll probably hear some folks today that actually, said that, hey, this was okay because it's narrowly defined and we're just drawing it to these opportunity zones. But now you may hear some folks that are saying, well, we may need to relook at this and think it and tweak it, but I think the bill is great the way it is, and we can always come back and address it next year because it's so narrowly drawn.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Senator Bell.
Question for council. On lines 45 through 47, I'm a little concerned. I want to get your opinion on this. The parts where no injunction stays, prohibition, I mean, can it seems like we're telling a separate branch of government how they can operate or what they can and can't do.
Let me get my attorney counsel as well, if that's okay. If we can answer that, would you? Yeah. Introduce yourself. And I'm an attorney. I try to stay as far away as possible from attorneys. So.
Hey. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I want to thank Delegate Hodges for the battlefield promotion of apparently now his counsel. I was here on behalf of King and Queen County, but I'm happy to address the senator's question. That portion of the bill is copied right out of the existing language in the landfill bill, and I believe it was the intent at the time to allow the two parties to negotiate in good faith without having to deal with various citizen groups intervening in those negotiations. And so that really is just a cut and paste. It is not I wouldn't argue that it's necessary to the success of the bill. It was really just taking from a section that you would already have passed and approved.
Question?
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess this is a question to the patron or the council who's here. So you said these siting agreements could be negotiated and put into effect without public comment. That's usually not a practice that local governments do when they enter agreements. These agreements are agreed to at a public meeting.
Yes, ma'am. There would still be the necessity to have the actual agreement approved at a public meeting. I think that's a requirement of the code. The board can't take action outside of a public meeting.
Correct.
But I believe that Keith would be amenable if that change would needed to be added to this. There is no intent that this would not take place at a public hearing. The intent is to allow the parties to have an open and honest discussion of what the needs of the community are and the ability of the applicant to assist in meeting those needs.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
So there's nothing in this bill that would negate the requirement that the agreement be adopted at a public hearing?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McPike.
I believe it requires a public vote of the governing body in order for the chief executive officer to enact the agreement. So it would have to be docketed.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Bell.
I appreciate your answer before. I was going to go back to my previous question. Council, did you have anything to say on that? No? Great answer. So my other question would be, I know that it would be docketed and it would be a majority vote. I read that in there, and I'm a little concerned about and I don't know if you can shed light why you did this. Maybe this is cut and paste 2, lines 49, basically saying that an executed agreement supersedes local ordinance or regulation. That seems caused me a little bit of concern there.
Yes, sir, Senator. That is also a cut and paste from the landfill section. And but I believe the reason there is that, and that exists, and why that probably is important to this bill, is that does give certainty to the applicant that whatever is negotiated and agreed upon, the county will see fit to put forward. So in a land use case, it's very frequently in the negotiation, you may touch upon things like setbacks or buffering and things like that that can be considered in the zoning case, but may be part of the negotiations. So the idea there is to allow the locality and the applicant to negotiate on some of the land use particularities of the case as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McPike.
follow-up question to a newly promoted council. So conceptually, the host locality under this, as I read it, could negotiate additional taxes in lieu of or other provisions or set any sort of parameters they want. You know, we want a payment of X percentage of fees of kilowatts generated. We want X payment. Like, what are some of the parameters? I don't see sort of guardrails on this whatsoever. Can you describe what is conceived or provide some insight in terms of what guardrails are in this legislation?
Yes, sir. That is an excellent question. It's something that the sponsor of the bill and I have talked about many, many times. I think the important, if I can just segue for a brief second, the important thing to remember about this bill is it only applies to those localities that are eligible for opportunity zone delegation. So you are, in essence, taking away most of the rails, but only in those very small areas. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is you're already coming into a rural locality and having all the impact Delegate Hodges said. But let's take, for example, the case he gave of a 1,700-acre solar facility going into an opportunity zone, right? So that solar company now is able to avail themselves of the tax benefits of the opportunity zone, but for the locality, you've sucked the word opportunity out of the phrase opportunity zone because those 1,700 acres are tied up 40-plus years, and there is no chance for additional opportunity zone investment and for other small businesses to come in and invest in that low to moderate income community. So you are correct in that it will be a truly arm's length negotiation, just like a landfill, but it's limited to those areas where they are extracting more than they typically extract, because now they are damaging and limiting your capacity to operate within an opportunity zone, which for much of rural Virginia is the only tool in our economic development toolbox now, right? We don't have the ability to give local tax credits and things, but the federal government saw fit to give us opportunity zones. If these large projects are allowed to locate there with no compensation to the locality, then you've defeated the whole purpose of the designation. DHCD is funding studies and management for localities with state money right now on how to manage our opportunity zones. This, in essence, ameliorates the opportunity zone. So I will agree with you that there are very limited rails, but the purpose is because you're going into an area that's been designated by the federal government as highly burdened, and you're taking away any chance to do anything with the opportunity zone in that large footprint.
All right, anybody else? Anybody else want to speak in favor of 1675?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris McDonald with the Virginia Association of Counties. Just wanted to quickly say that we do support this bill and we appreciate your consideration this morning. Thank you.
Susan?
Good morning. Susan Seward, Chairman of the Sussex County Board of Supervisors. We strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Good morning. Louis Lawrence with the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. And my jurisdiction support this bill.
Anybody opposed to 1675?
Chairman, members of the committee, Chip Dix on behalf of the Solar Energy Industry Association, also Open Road Renewables. And if I can give a little bit of background, first of all, Delegate Hodges and I have had some really good discussions about this bill, and I testified in the House that we like the concept of the bill. We think there are things that need to be placed in this bill with respect to guardrails, though, that would address a number of the issues that committee members raised. To go back to the King and Queen project for a minute, I do represent Open Road Renewables in that project. It is 1,700 acres. There's 700 acres of wetlands and setbacks. There's 1,000 acres inside the fence, and there's 400 and some acres of actual solar panels. So yes, it's 1,700 acres, but there's actually 400 and some acres of solar panels. The other thing that Delegate Hodges referenced was the amount of money. I would indicate to you that, Delegate Hodges, you've stayed away from the zoning case because you're a member of the House of Delegates, but the presentation I made to the Board of Supervisors last Monday was that the taxes over the amount of 40 years in this lifespan is $6 million, and our client proposed to pay an additional $4 million of voluntary payments. And if the revenue share bill that is before you this session passes, it'll amount to a total $13 million package for King and Queen County. So it is not a $20,000 a year kind of deal. And part of the reason that we've been here this year as a solar industry is to create legal structures to negotiate with counties and be able to provide counties options, rural counties options. Because Delegate Hodges is correct, that rural counties under the current legal structure do not have but so much in terms of the real estate tax increase, the assessment increase that usually goes from a couple $100 an acre to something more like $10,000, $12,000 an acre. And then also the M&T tax share is at 20% with an 80% exemption. So what we've done is with legislation this year that you all have already voted on that looks like it's going through the process, what will happen is that the counties will get, for solar projects at 150 megawatts, they'll get an additional $250,000 a year in terms of that compensation with the bills that, and the revenue share bills that Senator Barker and Delegate Jones have in the House. So that's that. With respect to this particular bill, my concerns about this bill, and I've discussed these with Delegate Hodges, are when you look at the definition on line 18 of facility, this means any solar facility, which would mean somebody's rooftop, which again, I don't think we want to have a siting agreement discussion for somebody's rooftop. There's no low side cap. The cap that I would propose in some edits would be 20 megawatts, which would seem fair. Likewise, on lines 22 through 25, what the bill does is to say that the parties shall execute a siting agreement. So the question is, what happens if the county says, I want $15 or $20 million, and the project won't support that? The locality can say, okay, so you cannot file your zoning application. This basically, under the siting agreement provisions, removes your right to file your land use applications. So again, I've suggested some amendments to be discussed that would allow you to still file your land use application. The language on lines 49 and 50 says that the siting agreement can basically supersede those land use regulations. So it would seem to me you'd want to have the land use regulations on the table and everything at the same time so you could look at those. And if for some reason the developer doesn't agree with the county on a dollar amount, then the land use case still ought to be able to go forward. But at the same time, when it goes forward, the developer's kind of dumb to take it forward if they haven't worked out financial community benefits with the county.
Chip, let me ask you this, and this goes to Delegate Hodges as well. So I understand that there's been a lot of discussion about this.
Yes, sir.
And the amendments you're talking about now, were they just rejected, or you all didn't have time to hammer it out, or what's the status?
I would like the opportunity to continue to discuss with Delegate Hodges and the proponents, and if the bill went by for the week, I think we might be able to come back next week to the committee with something that would be totally of consensus.
Let me talk to the guy whose name is on the line here. What's your pleasure, Delegate Hodges?
Well, number one, excuse me, I will tell you, going from a shall to a may is a non-starter, because then that negotiation would never take place. We need to give our localities and our economically distressed localities the ability to sit down and have a discussion on the future of their locality, and especially tying it up for 40 years for future economic development. We need to have that in place. And unless I can be reassured that our localities will have that ability to sit down and have an open and honest debate, and be assured today, I mean, that's a non-starter.
Sure. All right, let me. I don't want to have an open negotiation here in front of everybody, but so let me tell you this: if it is coming down between a shall and a may, Delegate Hodges is absolutely right. There's no need to pass it by for the week.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that Delegate Hodges just said that if it's a shall and the parties sit down and negotiate, we're fine with that. The concern is it says shall execute a siting agreement. So I don't have any problem with the shall. I believe that the land use applications ought to be able to move forward at the same time, but I think we could work together to come up with language to accomplish
Okay.
Delegate Hodges' goal of having it be a shall instead of a may, and then work through the remainder of the bill.
Okay, all right, that's the end of my attempt to facilitate a negotiation. So Delegate Hodges, you want to let it go by for a week and make
All
your
right,
stab at it?
we'll go ahead and do that and
Okay,
bring that back.
all right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep,
Just
yep,
one-
Senator McPike.
Speaking to, I think, one last piece of feedback, which is
Sure.
important, I think Senator Bell brought it up, is the bypassing of local land use and zoning, even if it is in landfill, this is not a landfill. And so I think that's a pretty strong tenet that we're going to legislate one of the principal tenets of local government's authority, which is through comprehensive plans and zoning. And to have an instrument that bypasses a very tedious and public process that you go through to establish zoning is troublesome. And so I would just,
Well, and if I may answer that, that's already been done. I mean, we're doing it landfills. This is already have a much larger impact than a landfill would on our area. And hundreds of these will need to be built around the Commonwealth and change the landscape of our rural localities if we're going to meet our energy goals. So if I think that's going to be important I mean, we can have that discussion, but it's also done in other areas of code with biosolids as well.
All right.
So
All right,
we can do that.
All right,
Go back
so
to
you've
the-
heard, Senator Hodge, you've heard the concerns of the committee, and hopefully you all will come back. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this next week because we've heard the bill. So come back with a compromise for us.
Got it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks, guys. Next up is Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill, House Bill 554, is based off the bill we passed 2 years ago for zoning for wireless communications infrastructure, if you remember that bill. And, you know, one of the things we did is we made it an administrative process whereby localities have to approve this infrastructure unless there's a couple things are hit where they can deny it, but the default is they have to accept it. And so this bill, first off, I just want to note, is only for neighborhoods that have underground wires where there isn't already infrastructure. So if you're looking at the piece of the code, it's on line 61, part 2, where it says that proposes to locate a new structure or to co-locate a wireless facility in an area where all cable and public utility facilities are required to be placed underground. And what this bill would do is it would say that localities can disprove an application if the applicant has not given 15 days notice to adjacent landowners, because otherwise these adjacent landowners are sometimes just finding out about this infrastructure when the orange line is being painted in the house next to them in their neighborhood. And so this would just require transparency about where they're going to build this infrastructure in undergrounded neighborhoods, and that is the bill.
Anybody speak in favor of House Bill 554?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mike Sherman with the County of Henrico, and Delegate Van Valkenburg hit all the talking points we had. It came out of an issue in our community where, as these services were being rolled out, because it is an administrative process, the homeowners were completely unaware until folks showed up with white trucks and started putting engineering stakes and orange paint in the ground. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay. Anybody else to speak in favor of 554? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, Phyllis Arica with the Virginia Association of Counties, and we think this is a good bill. We think it's good for the entities putting in these facilities and for the citizens to know what's going on, so we support the bill.
Okay. Anyone else? Anybody to speak against 554? All right, and I would...
Move to report.
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, been moved and seconded that House Bill 554 pass. All right.
All right, thank you, Mr.
There
Chair,
you go.
members of the committee.
Next up down the sign-up sheet, we have Delegate Leftwich.
Move the report.
Move, substitute motion.
No objection. Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this is House Bill 1369 that deals with land bank authorities. And the bill simply makes the conflicts of interest applicable to land banks consistent with what state and local governments are already required to comply with. And the reason why I brought the bill was because Chesapeake's established a land bank authority, and they sent out an RFP for banking, and of the 3 or 4 banks that responded, the one bank that had the best deal, one of the board members happened to be on the authority. And because of the current language, he couldn't even recuse himself and allow the rest of the board to approve that contract. And so, in any other situation, the person who has a conflict would just recuse himself, and the remainder of the board would vote. But the current language dealing with land banks prevents any connection, direct or indirect, and does not provide for anyone to be able to recuse himself. So, and this, again, this just makes it consistent with what everybody else has to comply with as far as ethics goes. So.
Okay, great.
That's fine.
Anybody want to speak in favor of House Bill 1369?
Don't mess it up now.
I'm Jeff Gore on behalf of the City of Chesapeake. This is one of Council's priorities for the session, and the delegate has explained it very well, so I appreciate your support.
Perfect. All right, anybody speak against 1369? Is there a motion on 1369?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 1369 pass. There you go.
Thank you.
Sir. All right, next up, Delegate Coiner. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Before you this morning is House Bill 929. It is a cleanup of a code section that would clarify that subdivision plats would be vested indefinitely once they have been conveyed. There has been an exception in the code related to roads that are transferred and accepted by the locality, and this simply makes it where all of those roads are treated the same in the code. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Anybody speak in favor of House Bill 929?
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association of Virginia, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Senator McPike.
question for the patron. Is this your first bill before the Senate Local Government Committee?
It is. Yes, sir, it is.
Oh, my. My. That's unfortunate. All right. Anybody else speak in favor of 929? Could anybody possibly be against Delegate Coiner's first bill here in local government 929?
Just wait.
Delegate Guy, are you going to speak against the bill?
I think we should move, I move to report the bill.
This bill that passed 99 to 0 on the other House side. There's a motion to report. Is there a second?
Second.
Duly motioned and seconded. House Bill 929 report. All in favor?
Oh, gosh.
Nice try. There you go.
We have a challenging committee.
Yeah. All right.
Kick-ass legislation right there,
Kick-ass. Now we have one of the icons of the General Assembly, Delegate Orrock. Do you like how I set you up for that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, that's far complimentary than being called an old coot or whatever around here. But, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 1655. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill is brought at the request of my county treasurer to address orphan properties in subdivisions. This just gives the treasurer an additional tool besides putting such delinquent properties to auction to where under very specific circumstances, the property is in a subdivision whereby the HOA has ceased to exist and there's no means otherwise to dispose of the property except by auction, that he now may, emphasis on may, offer in whole or part to sell these parcels to adjoining property owners and thereby get them on the tax rolls. The county wouldn't have to maintain the property. It just conveys some ownership. Once I found out about this, there are apparently in my district several subdivisions where HOAs existed. There were common areas. The HOA has dissolved. When the subdivision was platted, these were always intended to be common areas. The property owners never anticipated somebody building behind them. So they would like the option to be able to purchase part of the common areas, but not all of it. And this would just afford them that opportunity.
All right, pretty simple. House Bill 1655. Anybody speak in favor? Anybody want to speak? Well, let's see if there's anybody. Anybody want to speak against? All right, now you're ready.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, Senator McPike.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Just a quick question for the patron. I don't see a time requirement in terms of notice of sale or offer. A lot of traditional practices and local governments have a provision for at least a 30 or 60-day notice to owner for adjacent owners. Sometimes adjacent owners are not in town or otherwise. So I just have a quick concern about sufficient notice in regards to the provision versus the locality dropping off a notice and then a sale, an agreement is moving forward without all the adjacent property owners. I think it's a good bill, but would you be amenable to, as this moves, to add a notice provision?
Yeah, and I would trust staff. Jeff helped me work on this language from the outset. If there's a means whereby to make sure it conforms with standard notice provisions right now as exist for the auction of the property. And candidly, that's what brought it forward, was the property owners saw the auction notice and went, what's going to happen here? We don't want it to be sold. But your point is well taken. If the four of these are property owners, we want to make sure all four have similar window of opportunity to put forward their option to purchase. So if
Jeff or Dave, can you give us some language on that?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, looking at line 14, after the word may, say something along the lines of a locality may, after giving notice to adjacent landowners, choose to offer for sale.
And Mr. Chairman, would we want to put in specifics, at least 30 days notice?
You need some time frame.
Yes. I would see that as a friendly amendment.
We can do that.
So it's 30 days notice?
Mr. Chair, I move the amendment.
Second. All right, motion's been made that we adopt the amendment. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the bill as amended is before us.
Move to report as amended.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 1655 be reported as amended. All in favor? There you go, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and Senator McPike for your helpful suggestion. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, committee members. Before you is House Bill 1232. Mr. Chairman, committee members, kind of the backstory that involves a little town of Timberville in northern Rockingham County. It's like a lot of our small communities that back in the day, if you will, had small businesses and so forth. And, just over the years, those businesses have gone away and their economies have continued to get smaller, and so they were left with, derelict buildings and so forth. And so what this bill simply does is adds them to a very small list of communities that are able to impose a, very small fee to landowners to try to encourage them to do something with their property instead of just letting it fall in disrepair and become a ward of the locality or the community.
All right, that's the bill. Anybody speak in favor of 1232? Anybody speak against 1232?
Kind of vacant.
Move to report.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 1232 be reported. There you go.
We never let these Republicans get away with this when I was in charge. These House Republicans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Delegate Wilt. Delegate Guy, you are up. Right on time.
I apologize. Since they don't let us vote absentee, the education chair had just texted me that they needed my
Your
vote.
timing is perfect. And just so you know, your bill has been requested by finance if it is reported.
All right. It is in the House budget and it was in the governor's budget. In fact, this is a administration bill. What House Bill 654 does is authorize the Office of Mines, Minerals, and Energy to act as a statewide sponsor for the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, otherwise known as CPACE. I'm going to assume everybody at the panel knows what CPACE is, since it was the enabling legislation was passed by this body 5 years ago. Since that time, 9 localities have enacted CPACE programs. It is hoped that by appointing MME as a statewide sponsor, it will facilitate smaller and underserved communities having access to this program. I hope that it will be the will of the committee to report it on to finance and then elsewhere.
Let me ask you something, Delegate Guy. So right now, the localities have to pass an ordinance.
That's
So
right.
now they would have to opt in. What's the significance of?
Well, they would still have to pass the ordinance, but there are several processes with CPACE. First is passing the enabling legislation, and by having a statewide sponsor, we will have model legislation and ordinances already in place for smaller localities that don't have the opportunity to draft that. It'll also regularize the program across the state. The second factor is it'll give us a statewide level person to facilitate the recruitment, as it were, of the private investment funds to go into these various projects across the state, which is especially difficult for smaller localities.
Okay. Anybody here to speak in favor of 654?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Michael Skiffington, Director of Policy at DMME. We do support the bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Chris McDonald with the Virginia Association of Counties. We do support the bill. As the delegate said, a number of our localities have adopted their own CPACE programs recently, but this program will enable our smaller, more rural localities who don't have the necessary resources or technical expertise to be able to opt into this really important program. So we support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Shippey with Sierra Club. We support the bill.
Sorry.
I don't mean to cut off my supporters.
Andy Brownstein, I'm a partner at the law firm of Green Herlocker here in Richmond. We do a lot of alternative energy work, and I'm a strong supporter of CPACE. We believe this will be very helpful in helping smaller localities take advantage of the program. So far, only of the 9 localities who have enabled CPACE locally, most of them are the much larger municipalities and counties. So empirically, we can see that this is something that may be necessary for smaller counties to take advantage of the program. Thank you very much.
Okay. Whoa. Everybody speak against 654, if that's possible. Okay. All right, now Delegate Bell.
Senator Bell.
I'm sorry. Oh, my God.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, got a question? Yep. Senator DeSteff.
Delegate Guy, is this your first bill on the Senate side?
No, it's my third.
Third.
I had one in judiciary and I had one in education.
Oh, but the first one in front of local governments.
It is the first one in front of local government, yes, sir.
And I'm surprised we didn't hear a question from Senator McPike over there. But, well, so please explain what CPACE is.
The commercial project assessed clean energy.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Senator DeSteff.
Delegate Guy, if you could explain what CPACE is without opening your book.
Now, that would put all of us in a bad spot, Senator DeSteff.
The Commercial Project Assessed Clean Energy Program is a national program that allows localities to channel private investment to commercial and nonprofits who wish to build clean energy programs, whether it's solar panels, water recycling, energy efficiency programs. It does so by channeling the private money in, but then the repayment of the money is done through assessment in conjunction with either water and sewer bills or local taxes. So it gives the investors a level of comfort that they wouldn't have had otherwise. It's really a win-win-win proposal because it creates local jobs by having local projects. It actually ends up saving most of the businesses that utilize the program money because they find that the project, when it's financed over 20 years, is saving them more
Delegate Guy,
money.
that's great. You do much better when you don't read it from your book. Mr. Chairman, move to report.
All right. Moved and seconded that House Bill 654 be reported. Oh, I'm sorry, and the motion has to be referred to finance. All All right, Delegate Reed, I saw him come in. There he is.
Senator Lewis, members of the committee, thank you very much. We're doing 726 first. Okay, fantastic. So House Bill 726, which I believe has a companion bill, Senate Bill 746 by our esteemed retired Air Force officer, Senator Bell, and I had to bring that up, extends the time by which a governing body is required to approve or disapprove a locally initiated comprehensive plan amendment affecting more than 25 parcels from 90 to 150 days. The intent behind this is to actually provide an ample amount of time for there to be a review of the Planning Commission's recommendations, to incorporate comments from VDOT, and also allow sufficient time for the governing body to be able to incorporate public opinion. The current code allows just for 90 days. This really only equates to about 60 to 65 business days. And so especially for these high growth counties like Loudoun and Chesterfield and other areas, they need additional time to be able to actually address and review all of the different comments that are coming back from VDOT and from the public. And so just by extending this from 90 to 150 days, that allows enough time for that process to occur.
All right. Let me just point out for everybody's edification on the panel and in the audience that this is identical to Senator Bell and Vogel's SB 746, which passed the House 35-5, or passed the Senate 35-5, and this passed the House 99-0. Not trying to dampen anybody's
Mr. Chairman
here, but just, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Bell.
This is a fine bill, even if it's presented by a Navy guy. But I would also point out that in our audience, we have the chair of the Loudoun Board, Phyllis Randall. Raise your hand there. Joining us today and welcoming her here. Also would say that Loudoun County, the growth there has been about 30 people a day for a number of years. So this has been very complicated, and frankly, I think this just gives them time to make sure that they do this right. What they don't want to do is rush to do this and make mistakes. So with that, I definitely support this bill.
All right, let me just, does anybody want to speak against the bill? Okay. Motion duly seconded that 726 be reported. You want to be consistent? There you go.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeas 13, nays 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, I do. House Bill 738.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 738 basically changes the nomenclature in the Virginia Code so that it'll recognize that in the position of chair of the Board of Supervisors that it could be chair. Currently, the code only addresses it as chairman. What this does, and the interesting thing is that we have the positions of mayor, delegate, and senator that are all basically generic terms. And unfortunately, in the code, the Virginia Code, the position of chairman of the Board of Supervisors is identified as chairman. And so when this bill was originally introduced in 2018 in Northern Virginia, we actually had the chair of the Board of Supervisors of both Loudoun, Fairfax, and Arlington were all female, but effectively, legally, their title was chairman. So what this bill does as it came over from the House is it creates the ability for the presiding officer to be either chairman, chairwoman, chair, chairperson, or chair at large at the presiding officer's discretion. This basically takes what is very specifically a masculine term in the code and provides that it can be a term used by the preference of the person who's presiding, whether it be chair at large, chairperson, or chairwoman.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Spruill.
In Virginia, the other Virginia, where we're from, we can look at the person and we know it's the chairwoman. So we know it's the chairperson, a man. So why you got to put it in the code? You can look at him, look at her. She's the chairwoman. So why you got to put it in the code? You can look at and tell.
Senator Spruill, you bring up a very good point, and Mr. Chairman, if I may respond.
You may.
You bring up a really very good point, but in the code, and actually when they receive their certificate of election, it is identified as chairman. And so therefore, we all can tell by looking at Chairwoman or Chairperson Randall who she is and what she is, but still legally in the code and in their certificate of election, it identifies them as chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Sproul.
So you agree with me, back then, that's when all men were in control.
Mr. Chairman?
Delegate Reed.
Yes.
Bless your heart.
Senator.
Thank you so much. Thank
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
If you, maybe council might, or you might want to call a friend for this, but I think also written communications has to refer to the legal title, right? They can't just look and see. They have to use the non-gender neutral terms. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Delegate Reed.
I see council nodding in agreement, and I also see that Chair Randall is also nodding in agreement.
So Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Yeah,
Senator
so
Bell.
I mean, I think this also addresses something that, you know, it's a problem in the code right now. It's because they don't have the ability to use the correct terms. So reluctantly, the Navy officer has presented two good bills here. A broken clock's right twice a day. So with that, I'll move to report.
Been moved and seconded that House Bill 738 report.
Why not?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, and thank you, Senator Bell.
Delegate Bulova.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 742. You all already saw this one last week. Just to refresh your memory, this is the one that provides political subdivisions with the ability to manage conflicting uses between drones and other uses on property that's actually owned by that locality. Right now, they don't have any ability to be able to do that. To maintain consistency, the rules and the guidelines will be developed by the Department of Aviation. Senator DeSteph had raised a good concern with respect to military operations, and so we put an amendment on here just to make it doubly clear that if you have a military operation or any U.S. government operation operating within the confines of their assigned duties, this doesn't apply to them. Attorney General's office also made a good suggestion, which is we're actually not talking about unmanned aerial systems because the system includes all the electronic components to that. And so this just pares us down to the unmanned aircraft. And that's the thing that we're worried about.
Can we get the substitute?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, substitute.
The amendment or substitute?
Amendment
Substitute.
All right. It's been moved. We adopt the amendment nature of substitute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Substitute's in front of us. And you've described the substitute, right, Delegate
Correct, yes,
Bullock?
sir.
Okay. Committee will recall that we heard presentation of the bill last week. There were some issues, as Delegate Bullock said, and they've been resolved by this amendment. And does anybody want to speak against this bill, 742? All right, then. I think the bill's in front of us. It's in good shape.
Second.
Moved and seconded that 742 be reported. All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Delegate Ferris, is he here? Delegate Cole. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have before you HB 284, and I don't want to belabor your time. It's very similar to a bill that you all passed, Senate Bill 225 by Senator Richard Stewart. This bill came to us at the request of students from Stafford County changing Stafford's roads after the death of one of their classmates, Helen Wang. And basically, this bill would just give the localities the option to remove roadside vegetation if they deem that it could pose a threat to the visibility of drivers. And we worked with VDOT. Initially, they were against the bill. We worked with them. We got some amendments through, and VDOT now has no position on the bill. So I would just ask the support of this committee to report it to the Senate.
Mr. Chairman.
Who's down there? Senator DeSteph.
Delegate Cole, is this the first bill you have in front of the Senate?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you very much.
Be nice and hear the Reverend. Be nice to the Reverend, please.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
What is the difference between this one and the Senate bill? Because you said they were similar, but they were not the same. What's the difference?
There were some slight differences, and I would actually refer to council so they can explain those to you all.
Well, why don't we, let me try and short circuit this a little bit. Delegate Cole, would you have any objection in, not that it's going to make a whole lot of difference, but if you would have any objection to us conforming your bill to Senator Stewart's bill as it left this body?
Let me double check, because I personally think mine was a tad bit better. There were some issues that the locality brought before us that we cleared up in our bill. So,
Mr. Chair, I can just quickly read the two line amendments that would conform it to Senator Stewart's bills, and then you all can decide what to do with it. So the first one is on line 14, after the word property, strike the phrase adjacent to the right-of-way and insert the phrase located within 5 feet of the pavement. And then the second line amendment would be after the word place on line 15, striking maintained by the Virginia Department of Transportation. So just that whole thing.
All right. Anybody want to move those amendments?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved and seconded that we adopt the amendments as reported. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Your bill has been amended, Delegate Cole. Yep, Senator Spruill.
Based on the statement that he has made as far as the depth and what they're trying to do in the community, I know Senator Stewart been around a long time. Give the brother a break. He just got here. Don't kill him already. Pass the bill on, but what he's trying to do for the community, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a reason to let this bill go forward instead of merge. If anything, merge Stewart bill into his bill.
I think the horse is out of the barn on that one, Mr. Chairman.
If it was your horse, to put it out there, though.
Another question?
Yes.
Senator Stanley.
Delegate Cole. When the reduction of vegetation occurs, then that cost is passed on to the owner, the homeowner, or the owner of the property. Is that correct?
that is correct. This, in order for that to happen, however, the locality or VDOT has to be received. They have to receive a notification before it's going to be done. So we're just going out and telling Stafford County they can just chop off a bush because they want to do it. They have to let the landowner know prior to doing that.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
In some cases, we might be talking about vegetation, including but not limited to a large tree, which may come down. And even in my area, I know those that take down trees, those costs can be like $1,000 or more, can't they?
That's possible, yes, sir. And I think what we're looking at this position, even after Helen lost her life, the week I brought this before a committee, I had another student who had a terrible accident which totaled his car, even though he survived. So we're battling the cost of trees and bushes versus students' lives and people's lives in the community.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
And I understand and sympathetic to that. And you would agree with me, would you not, Delegate Cole, that public safety is the responsibility not of the individual homeowner, but of the government itself, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
And so if it's the sole responsibility that is public safety upon the government, then why is the homeowner bearing the cost of that which is the stated obligation of the local government?
I think that's pose a good question for me, because I remember when we were having these discussions with VDOT, we talked about the cost that was going to be incurred, and what they stated was this is something that VDOT was already doing. It was just that the localities would be able to get to it faster. That's what this bill came up to.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
And many times I see Asplund, that the VDOT sends out Asplund and they're taking down trees. They've taken down trees in my office that they deem might be either leaning on a power line or maybe go into the road. That's their determination, not mine. So is it my cost based on the government determination? They're going to, one, change my property, two, take down a tree or something, and three, then charge me for my troubles.
Yeah.
Delegate Cole, congratulations. The cost has been taken out of the bill assessed to the homeowner.
This wasn't a question I had to deal with in the House. I was like,
Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to let Senator Stanley slink off into the corner and go to Senator Hanger.
It's right in here, man. It's the computer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question. I understand the grass and the shrubs and the trees. On line 17 and then on 20, it says substance. And I guess I just want a clarification that may not embrace like signage that's been legally placed there?
No, this bill is specifically only for vegetation.
But it's-
So
That's, I just want to clarify, Mr. Chairman, just a clarification, because it does say substance
Sir, no.
on the line, and without, really identifying what kind of substances you're talking about. So just, if you feel your bill clearly wouldn't apply to like advertising signs and things that have been legally placed, that would be fine with it.
yeah. And I think the description of the bill says dangerous roadside vegetation. Yeah.
All right, Senator Bell.
And substances.
Senator Bell.
Mr. Chairman, I just passed this to the Patriot. I spoke with Senator Stewart when he brought his bill to committee, and sometimes property is owned by elderly people, may have been passed down multiple generations, and sometimes they physically can't get out there and remove such vegetation. But I hear the call to safety. All the students who were here before is very compelling. I asked him, and he said he would work to do this, and I just ask you as well. We'll try to see if there's volunteers that groups could come together to help in those situations. So some of our more vulnerable folks are not hit with big bills when this vegetation is removed from their property, because they may physically not be able to do it, and it could be a property been in their family a long time. And I think there's another way to make sure that they're not hit with that.
Absolutely. I could agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Anybody here to speak in favor of House Bill 284? Anybody want to speak against 284? All right, the bill as amended is in front of us.
Move report as amended.
Moved and seconded that 284 be reported as amended.
Oh, shit, I can't join her.
All right, Delegate Cole. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate you all.
All right, next, let's see, I see Delegate Herodick, I think, walked in. He is up on the list here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trying to make this very quick. House Bill, start with 657. I'd ask to take by for the day.
All right, 657 by for the day without objection.
Next, Mr. Chairman, House Bill 656, the standards bill. I would like to conform my bill with Senator Marsden's bill.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that 657, House Bill 657 be conformed, amended.
656, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
657 is by, 656 is moved to conform.
okay. All right, hang on a second there. All right, it's been moved that we conform with Senator Marsden's bill. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And finally, 655, I understand that there's a substitute.
Wait a minute, we need to do something with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, Senator Donovan.
657 has already been passed by the committee. It's identical to Marsden. We passed it in our identical bills.
No, I think we pulled that one out.
Okay.
We pulled 655 out, and 657 was not in our block.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to 650. Is it 656?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you just tell us what the differences were?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we had two changes. One of them was to include one of the standards on line 146. So the standard would be the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers Standards 1547. And then the second line amendment would be to remove that second enactment clause that's on page 171. So just all of lines 171 through 175 would be stricken.
Okay, so there are the amendments that are necessary to conform with Senator Marsden's bill. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Are you serious?
No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
Just kidding.
So it's conformed, and now what's our pleasure on House Bill 656?
Move report
As amended. All right. There you go. All right, what's next, Delegate Eric?
655, Mr. Chairman, I understand that there is a substitute in Peace in the Valley.
We have a substitute?
Can you have Chip Dix up here? That's what you mean.
You ain't got to talk long, Chip. Substitute.
Peace in the Valley.
All right, let's get the substitute in front of us. And actually, let's wait a minute until we actually seem to be getting the substitute out and reading it. All right. I think we've got a sufficient number of people who have the paper in their hands, so go ahead.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we have adopt the substitute. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Substitute's in front of us.
Young man.
Delegate Haradick.
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding with substitute that VACO, VML, and local attorneys have all gotten their heads together, and this is the grand workout that everyone agrees to.
Okay. Tell us what it does.
Mr. Chairman, Chip Dix on behalf of the solar industry, and what this substitute does versus the original bill. The original bill was drawn to the conditional zoning statute. This bill speaks to special exceptions, which includes conditional use permit and special use permits. And the intent of the bill is to allow, as the substitute and the original bill, is to allow when an applicant for a solar zoning case applies for approval on agricultural property, let's say with a conditional use permit, that under current law, that applicant cannot offset the impacts of that project by paying money or other things of substantial value, like acquisition of land or whatever. This would give the solar developer and, as the applicant and the county, the ability to negotiate what that condition would be, and that could include cash to offset the impacts of projects. So that's the goal of the bill, and I think the substitute reflects the thinking of a number of different attorneys and groups that have looked at it.
All right. Anybody speak in favor of House Bill 655?
Michelle Gowdy from the Virginia Municipal League. I want to thank the delegate and the solar industry for working with us, and so we now support the bill. Thank you.
Anybody else? In favor of 655? Anybody want to speak against 655? All right, 655, amendment nature of substitutes in front of us.
Move report.
Moved and seconded that 655 and the nature of amendment nature of substitute be reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Delegate Haradick. All right. Next, we have Delegate Ferris.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 1585 just allows for the town of Alta Vista, who has had a little issue with some PCPs that were dumped into their sewer years ago, and they're planting trees and doing some alternative mitigation of those PCPs, but they're also saving some money to remodel their sewer system, and this just allows some elderly and disabled customers, low-income customers, for them to leave their rates where they are now and raise the rates of some of the others.
All right, simple bill, House Bill 1585. Anybody want to speak against or in favor of 1585? Anybody against 1585?
Move to report.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 1585 report.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Delegate Ferris. Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill was requested by Augusta County Board of Supervisors, and what it has in it is they have agricultural property that was laid off in like subdivisions, lots smaller than an acre, and people have come in, bought, and built houses on some of the lots, leaving the other lots to grow up and be taken care of. And they requested a change in the code so that they could force these people to clean these lots up. The bill was amended in the House, and it only applies to Planning District 6, which covers Augusta County. The Farm Bureau is okay with this bill. Any questions?
Okay, all right. And this bill passed out of the House 99-0 in a block vote, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And yeah, only applies to Planning District 6. Okay, anybody wants to speak in favor of 875? Anybody want to speak against 875?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Senator Hanger.
I've never voted for a grass cutting bill before, but I'm going to support Delegate Campbell's bill because he's my buddy.
If that's
I don't know if that helps or not.
If that's a motion, I will second the
Got a
motion.
on the floor. All right, anybody want to get bills in front of us?
Move to report.
I'll second his budget report.
Moved and seconded the House Bill 875 report.
Thank you all.
All right, Delegate Campbell. Okay, Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the members of the committee. HB 696 comes by request of Prince William County Supervisor Kenny Bodie and is also supported by the Mayor of Manassas Park, which are the two localities I represent. This would allow basically any locality in the Commonwealth to add sexual orientation or gender or gender identity to their non-discrimination policies, and that's it.
All right, that's pretty straightforward. House Bill 696. Does anybody want to speak against, or I'm sorry, in favor of 696? Come on up, guys. Time's a-wasting.
Michelle Gowdy, VML, we support the bill.
Chris Ziegler with Fairfax County, we support the bill.
Chris Sexton of Prince William County, and I'm just here to give a personal account. I'm just a fiddle player, but I'm also a fiddle player in a bluegrass band who has a husband, and I'm a native-born Virginian.
And you're my constituent.
And I'm a constituent, I'm constituent. And I'm all too familiar with our history as a state of discrimination. This was the state that was on the losing side of Loving versus Virginia. We've been down that road before. It's not a good road to be on. And my husband and I were married in 2008 before it was legal in the state. We got legally married in D.C. in 2010 on our second anniversary. How sweet. But at the same time, our marriage, or the recognition of our marriage depended on which side of the Potomac River we stood on. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I'm here to say with authority that a vote of no on this bill is a signal to me and every Virginian that discrimination is somehow acceptable. It's completely unacceptable and not reflective of me or other Virginians like me. I stand before you today to declare that Virginia is for all lovers. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bo Wentz. I am a student from the University of Mary Washington and a native-born Virginian. I support Bill 696 as it will allow myself and other queer Virginians to exist without worrying about whether or not we will be discriminated against simply because of who we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kenny Bodie, Occoquan District Supervisor on the Prince William County Board of Supervisors. As Delegate Roman indicated, requested this bill pass through because right now, as the Code of Virginia is currently stated, cities, towns, school boards are currently able to add to their non-discrimination policies gender identity and sexual orientations. Counties cannot. And obviously, as you know, as a Dillon Rule state, if we're not vested authority to do it, we cannot do it. So we just want to come up and have the same authority as everyone else. And as a few of the constituents just said, we want to put forward that we're protecting all of our folks, regardless of who they really are and who they love. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is V. Lamnick. I'm the Executive Director of Equality Virginia, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Josh Hetzler on behalf of the Family Foundation. We do oppose this bill. You know, I have to say, I've never met anyone. I suppose there are people out there for whom this may be true, but I haven't met anyone who wants to treat anyone poorly, disfavorably on the basis of these characteristics. But what I do know, and what I hope you all have figured out, is that there are two competing worldviews on these particular issues, right? And one says they're competing views of what human nature is. And on the one side, they're biological realities, or perhaps it may be deeply held, sincerely religious beliefs about the nature of male and female and such. On the other hand, you have a worldview that says I could be able to determine for myself what I am, who I am in these regards. And I think we can all respect both of those worldviews. We can appreciate the distinction. And I hope that you would appreciate that distinction because what we've seen with these very bills, with these very laws, and we've seen it in Virginia. You may be familiar with Mr. Peter Vlamming at West Point High School, who was fired because he couldn't use certain pronouns. And we've seen in other states, Jack Phillips, the cake baker, who's now being sued for a third time under a similar ordinance because he's not able to lend his artistic expressions to provide certain things for a same-sex wedding. And so those are the things that are going to happen under this type of bill. And I think there's a way that we can all actually get along fine. And in fact, the evidence is that we are now in Virginia. There haven't been any reported cases, any founded cases of discrimination on these bases, even at the local levels. So I would just hope that you would consider that and urge you to oppose the bill.
Well, we're going to get along a little better after we pass this. All right, Senator Favola?
I can wait till after that speaker, and then I'll ask the patron.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Nathaniel Hurd. I'm a student in Henrico County. I'm here to oppose this bill. On line 15, it says education on the basis of race, color, religion, and sex. You're adding here on line 16, sexual orientation and gender. Seems a little redundant to me. As well, I'd like to read a passage from Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. I have nothing against any member of society that chooses to marry a man or whatever they choose to do. I have nothing against them. But putting this in here, does DNA not matter? With chromosomes that clearly define we are one or another. There's no in between there. God created us male and female. I don't see anything that no benefit comes from this. Also in line 21, it says gender identity means that without regard to the individual's designated sex at birth. So we're just throwing that away. It doesn't matter what their designated sex is. Is that what we're saying here? So I'm against this.
All right. What grade you say you're in?
I'm in 11th grade.
Okay. Delegate Rome, I do have a quick question for you. How does this, I'm going to let him go. I just have a question.
Sure.
How does this interact with Senator Evans' bill?
Okay, so the thing with Senator Evans' bill in this case is because we are on two different tracks right now. On this one, explicitly will allow localities, if they so choose, to include this within their local non-discrimination ordinances. Okay. And at the same time, and council can please confer, or confirm if I have misstated or if I have any error here. But regarding Senator Evans' bill, for example, and Delegate Sickles' bill, that is prescriptive statewide. And so when you're amending the Virginia Human Rights Act or the Virginia Human Rights Ordinance in that case, and then what we're doing here is we're basically saying localities, you can also put this into your local ordinance. That what we're basically saying here is that regardless of what happens with Senator Evans' bill, what happens with Delegate Sickles' bill, that at the local level, that if you would like to include this language into your code, you certainly may.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I would just like to say that this is my first time speaking, but I support the bill. I believe that, as the last two people that stated before about strong religious beliefs and all, we had separation of state and religion, or state and church, and that those considerations need to be taken out of consideration when we're talking about human rights of people of a different religion or no religion at all. That it's two separate entities, and that we need to look at human rights as being equal across the board. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sproul.
Speaking for the bill. I'm speaking. My courthouse got me straight on what have you. I'm supporting this bill. And I want you to understand why. Forget all about what's happening now. I'm looking at that when Lawrence Douglas Wilder, the first black governor in this country, I assume I was told right, when he finished school, he couldn't go to school of his choice. The state paid for him to go to Howard because he was black. I'm looking at when I was born in 1946, that we had to walk past a white school. We couldn't go there because my skin was black. I'm looking at a black person who want to go to a restaurant in the early 60s, couldn't be served, had to go around the back because we were black. And the young man said something about God created man and woman. Yes, he did. But he didn't say anything about they had to be discriminated. So my point is this, on that, we shouldn't discriminate against anybody. Now I should be the last one. Last I'm looking at as far as the black person in this place, how the whites kept blacks from being in this place because of skin was black, no other reason. So I'm saying to me, we got to cut that foolishness out. I'm supporting this bill.
Anybody else? Senator
No.
Favola?
Mr. Chairman, I move to report the bill. I think this does create more harmony. Again, the local governments, this is at their option, which has been mentioned a couple of times. So your local supervisors do reflect the values and culture and attitudes of the people who are living in that jurisdiction. I think this is a much-needed power that should be granted to local governments, and I hope the bill passes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that House Bill 696 pass. And let me just say, there is nothing more Virginian than the right of everybody to be let alone. So, all right.
Amen.
And Mr. Chair, as the vote's going, if anyone has a question about whether or not discrimination exists in the state on account of gender identity or sexual orientation, spend a day in my shoes.
Thank you, Delegate Rome. All right, next up, Delegate Weber. You've been waiting patiently.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, committee, before you, I have brought House Bill 938.
All right, 938.
Yes, sir. So if I could describe the problem and how I believe this bill solves the problem. My locality in Fauquier has our courthouse. It has 2 courts in it. They would like to build a new courthouse to accommodate rising growth, more cases, et cetera. All of the adjoining properties are built up. They own property within 800 feet of the current courthouse that they can build on, that they currently own. As they read the code currently, they would have to put that before a referendum, and they would like to save that cost. And plus, as the bill is stated, it does not mention town. Our courthouse is in a town, and so they just would like to be able to build a new courthouse facility 1,000 feet from the current courthouse facility.
Okay. All right, anybody want to speak in favor of 938? Eldon?
Mr. Chairman, Eldon James on behalf of Fauquier County, and wanted to say that the town of Warrenton has unanimously passed a resolution in support of this, and they hope the county can proceed.
Anybody else in favor? Anybody by any stretch of the imagination want to speak against House Bill 938? 938's in front of us.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you. A few years ago, I had a very similar bill in Rockbridge County and the city of Lexington. I move the bill be reported.
Second.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 938 be reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Delegate Weber.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got, actually,
I'm going to have a friendly. When we do get to it.
all right, Delegate Carr. I don't think you need to, do you need to be here? Didn't we talk about this?
Somebody, just got a text
Okay,
that I need
all
to
right,
be
I'm
here, so,
sorry. Okay.
thank you.
Yours is identical to Senator McClellan's, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Which one is it, Delegate Carr?
Mine is HB 1101.
1101.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Seeks to provide local governments and,
All right, well, give us the Reader's Digest version, and then we'll,
thank you. Thank you, Mr.
for
Chairman.
those of you who remember what Reader's Digest is.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the committee. House Bill 1101 seeks to provide local governments and private sector and nonprofit housing providers an additional tool to incentivize the inclusion of affordable housing in new residential and mixed-use developments. Current code contains 2 affordable dwelling unit ordinances enabling statutes. One statute, section 15.2-2304, applies to Albemarle, Loudoun, Alexander, and Fairfax, and grants local governments broad authority to craft their local ordinances. The other statute, 15.2-2305, applies to all of the other localities. The latter statute is complex, burdensome, and challenging to implement for both local governments and the housing community. However, some localities may still wish to continue their current ADU program, which is enabled under 15.2-2305. Therefore, HB 1101 would create an additional enabling statute for ADUs that is a local option tool for localities to reduce the economic barriers to entry for affordable housing projects by offering density bonuses and waivers or reductions of local development standards, such as parking requirements, height restrictions, setback buffers, and other local regulations.
Okay. And this is identical to Senator McClellan's bill, Senate Bill 834, for the panel's edification. Are there any questions of the patron?
Move to report.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 1101 be reported. All right. Okay. So we have Delegate Lindsay and Delegate Wampler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
members of
Delegate
the
Carr.
committee.
And we do have some remaining bills that are identical to Senate bills, as you can see on your docket. And it looks like, did we do them all? Did we put them in the block? Okay. So we've done all the identical bills. So Wampler's on his way? All right, well, let's give him a couple of minutes. When you say it's similar to Chafin's, is it a substantive difference or is it just a? Okay. All right, and let me also say this, that we've got some charter bills, I think, that are not identical to House bills, I mean to Senate bills, is that correct? We've gone through, I was going to say, anything that's not identical to something we've done will be going through Senator Spruill's subcommittee. So, yeah, we have 2 so far. Yeah, Delegate Lindsay, Senator DeStefs indicated he might have an amendment to yours. Do you want to go ahead and do that today, or do you want to pass it over till next week?
Actually, it's a simple
simple?
one. Right. Just add veterans to the preferential.
Okay. All right. We're waiting for Wampler, so get up there. We'll do yours if you want to.
I have the opportunity to pull it out of my brief.
You mean you can't do it from memory? Let's hear what the bill. Let's hear what the bill does first.
Here's right here. Thanks. That's even better. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill is the micro business bill. The goal is to afford the opportunity for localities to enact an ordinance to enhance micro business participation in local government procurement practices. Such measures may include special designation of local micro businesses, providing technical support to micro businesses, setting target goals for micro business participation in local procurement process, or other reasonable measures intended to promote micro business participation in a locality. For purposes of this section, micro businesses shall mean small, women-owned or minority-owned businesses with no more than 25 employees. And I understand, and I got ahead of myself. I understood that there was a amendment that was being offered.
Discussed. Senator DeStefs.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a friendly amendment. I've talked to the City of Virginia Beach, who's Joe's carrying this for, to add on line 18, after the word small, comma, veteran-owned, add veteran-owned, comma.
Okay. And that's a friendly amendment, I take it, Delegate Lindsay?
Well, if it's veteran-owned and it doesn't give a number, then I'm not sure. So,
it would be the same number. It doesn't change anything.
Okay.
It says veteran-owned, comma, woman-owned, comma, or minority-owned business with no more than 25 employees. It doesn't change the
Then
number
that would be
at
a
all.
friendly amendment. I just wanted to make sure that we were talking.
Yeah, we're not trying to change the.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a technical
Senator Favola.
question, and then we're going to adopt the amendment. I am reading that to mean that a micro business meets one of those criteria. Is that the correct reading?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And do you need
We have a motion on the amendment. We have a second? Okay. Motion and seconded that we adopt Senator DeStefs' amendment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the bill as amended is in front of us. Is there a motion?
Move report as amended.
Been moved and seconded that House Bill, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong number here.
558.
558, I'm sorry. House Bill 558 be reported. There you go.
Hey, I hit the wrong button. Yeah, yes.
Can we change that? We don't have to revote.
Right, yeah, that's good.
All right. Keep him on the uncontested docket. Okay. Delegate Wampler's not here, old habits. Delegate Wampler's not here. We're going to have to deprive him of his opportunity to appear before the much heralded local government committee. Is there a motion to conform Senator Wampler's bill to Senator Chafin's bill? All right. Moved and seconded that we conform Senator Wampler's bill, Delegate Wampler's bill, to Senator. Okay, there's a motion that we re-refer Delegate Wampler's bill to courts. All in favor?
Yeah.
We're going to conform. We are in the middle of a motion to conform yours to Senator Chafin's. Do you have any objection to that?
No objection, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the motion is that we conform to Delegate Wampler's bill to Senator Chafin's bill. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now the bill as amended is in front of us.
Move report as amended.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Senator McPike. Whoa, hold. Senator McPike.
Question of the delegate.
Senator
Does this
McPike.
have anything to do with the sale of liquor over the internet? And could there be disposed of liquor bottles in the landfill that have sold over the internet?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McPike, no, this bill does not have to do with House Bill 1187.
So it follow, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
So this bill won't get to the Senate floor and then have to get re-referred back to Rehab and Social Services ABC Subcommittee for review, is what you're saying?
I don't know if it's the coffee or the vote going back. Yeah, that'd be correct.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's open it back up. You almost made the uncontested docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Wampler. I think that completes, staff, does that complete our business for the day? As best as we can do? All right, we're done. See y'all next week.